The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Greetings, Flesh Wound freaks, and welcome to Flesh Wound After Dark. I'm Flesh Wound Dan, joined by producer Todd.
Good evening.
And live from Columbia, Max Ammo.
Good evening.
How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Max?
I'm doing absolutely excellently. Everything's great, yeah.
Yeah, we're here tonight to talk Black Emmanuelle, which is going to be very exciting. Of course, this awesome new Severin box set that just came out.
Oh, well,
yeah, we all got it.
Yeah.
Beautiful
there's the
set.
Severin bag.
Can't show you some pictures, but
you know the first random thing when I got this, I thought it's so heavy, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. As a weapon. As a weapon, this would be a great weapon for a horror movie, like a giallo, right? People are murdering people with the Black Emmanuelle box set. This is like literally the weapon, but the killer is using. But you wouldn't even need to, you know, if you got the corner of that to the temple, you know, and with the magical cinema. But I just thought, I thought someone like making a horror movie but so meta. You know, just for the fans, for like the people who go on the Facebook pages for like the Grindhouse movies and stuff, like where there's just someone is using a box set of the thing and someone is investigating it, you know.
There you go. Yeah.
Like a giallo, a modern giallo.
Yeah.
Cheaper, you know.
I think the blood-stained slipcover is what I
there you go.
Yeah, something like that, exactly. The blood-stained slipcover, yeah.
There you go. So, yes, obviously we're here tonight to talk Emmanuelle, and for those unfamiliar, of course, you had the French film based on the erotic novel from the 60s with Sylvia Crystal, and one thing that's really amazing about this franchise, there's different versions of it. Of course, you had the Sylvia Crystal films, you had Black Emmanuelle, you had Yellow Emmanuelle, you had Emmanuelle in Space going into the 90s. It's a crazy amount of movies that kind of took advantage of this.
Well, you didn't have to pay to use the IP, did you? Like anyone could make an Emmanuelle movie.
Well, I think they
dropped out the M.
Yeah, dropped an M, and there you
go.
Yeah. They were able
like Bruce Lee, all the Bruce Lees.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a documentary coming out about the Bruce Lee clones, actually. Also from Severin. So I'm pretty excited.
Well, I think there's already been a documentary, one documentary that I've seen about Bruce Lee clones.
Mm-hmm.
Like an old one, like that came out quite a long time ago, you know?
Yeah.
But Severin do good work, you know, I will say that.
Yeah, they do, and they did on this set. Just a little background getting into Black Emmanuelle. At this time, we were kind of in the porno chic era, which, if people are unfamiliar with that term, that's where sexually explicit movies were getting theatrical releases, stuff like Blue Movie, Behind the Green Door, Opening of Misty Beethoven, just to name a few. And there was a want for this explicit content. A lot of people were turning to TV, and they had to give you something that you weren't going to see on TV, which certainly Black Emmanuelle provides that. And the amount of films that they made, the first Emmanuelle with Sylvia Crystal was made in 1974. And we'll get into Black Emmanuelle too, because this is a very confusing series. But you had
there's 24 feature films just on the box set. You know.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of unofficial stuff, and there's a lot. But
like Godzilla, like Godzilla but sex.
Yeah,
like
I think
prolific like Godzilla.
I think Laura Gemser would be able to seduce Godzilla. I don't think he'd have a chance. It would just be over.
Well, I was going to ask you guys, did any of you see any recent Laura Gamesner anything in connection with this box set? Because I couldn't find anything. Because I'm surprised, they didn't have a photo of her with this box set. Because it's a lovely, if I was her, I'd be well chuffed with that. It's a lovely testament to her work. And I was surprised Severin didn't get a photo with her. But I was looking into it, and she's done almost no public stuff.
Yeah.
It's very hard to find any photo. It's really hard to actually find a photo of Laura Gamesner post the first half of this millennium. And there's barely any of those. But, But what there is, which they missed, Severin, they missed the boat on this. I don't know if they didn't know about it, they couldn't get it. Her last appearance of any kind was in a Gabriel Tinti documentary. Her husband, she was in a Gabriel Tinti documentary that was shot about 15 years ago. And I can't find it anywhere online, but I can just find it listed. And there's one photo of her being interviewed in it. And she looks good. I mean, she looks exactly how you expect her to look. She looks very much as she always did,
Yeah, I'd like to see that as well. I've been aware of it for a long time, and I don't know if it was just in Italy.
I assume Severin would have got it for this box set if they could have, because it's completely pertinent to this box set, because Gabriel Tinti's in like pretty much fucking half the movies in there, more than half the movies in there.
Yeah. She took it really hard after he died, and of course she continued on as a costume designer for Joe D'Amato in a lot of different things. She really didn't like being typecast in the sex roles, and she briefly escaped it. This is a movie that I don't know anybody who's ever actually seen it, but she played Michael Landon of Little House on the Prairie fame's girlfriend in a 1983 TV movie called Love is Forever. And they made her keep her past in Emmanuelle films a secret. They didn't treat her particularly good, but she was the girlfriend in that. Jürgen Prochnow and Priscilla Presley was in that movie.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So if you're curious, it's probably online. It was a TV movie in the 80s, so I'm sure. Yeah. Love is Forever. It's one of her only like truly mainstream things that she did.
The two movies I can think of, well, they're not mainstream movies by any means, but the movies where she kept her clothes on.
Yeah.
But spring to mind straight away is Endgame, of course, Bronx Lotto Finale, which plays the sidekick, and the other one, Ator, the Fighting Eagle. Yeah. She's also in Ator, where she also plays a psychic, well, she kind of magic psychic, very similar roles. And she's almost unrecognizable because she has her hair all up. She looks very different. And she did the costumes for both of those movies as well.
Yeah, she was multi-talented, a very talented lady. And we'll talk a little bit about her, but we'll get into the first film, which is, of course, Black Emmanuelle, from writer-director Vito Albertini. And in this one, while on assignment in Nairobi, a photojournalist questions her racial and sexual identity when she engages in affairs with her wealthy host. Laura Gemser did actually appear in Emmanuelle 2 as a masseuse the same year, too. It's crazy how fast they shot these movies out, and they're not.
I did not notice in Emmanuelle 2. I missed that. I missed that.
Small role as a masseuse, and to do this, basically around the same time. IMDb's not always reliable for a lot of these movies, but basically, you know, within a year, give or take. I mean, she was, you know, she became Emmanuelle essentially. What do you guys think of the first one?
Todd.
Okay. Well, it wasn't the first one I saw, but it was the first. Oh, here we go. I'll pull something out of the archive. There you go.
Oh,
There's the VHS tape.
Wow.
nice.
Don't worry, Danny. It cuts off
Wow.
the photo.
Usually VHS didn't show the boobs. Usually.
Yeah, this was one I saw like after I already knew who Black Emmanuelle was, but it really sets the tone for this series. I kind of wish I would have seen it first, because like my first ones were that the trilogy we'll be talking that's coming up very soon. There's 3 particular films that like really got me into the Black Emmanuelle films, and brought me to the first one. And I do really like it. It's different than the other ones, but I mean, this really is like the setup. It brings you into that world of Black Emmanuelle. Not my favorite, but it's still a really, really good film.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not the first one I saw. The first Black Emmanuelle movie I saw was Massacre in a Women's Prison.
Okay.
So I didn't think of it as a Emmanuelle movie. I thought of it as a Bruno Mattei movie. It was when I was first getting into Bruno Mattei, and I did his women in prison movies.
Yeah.
And I did both of those Bruno Mattei prison movies. And I noticed she's called Emmanuelle. She's playing the same character in both movies. And then I saw Emmanuelle and the Last Cannibals, which is one of my favorite movies just of all time. I mean, that movie is just, it's its own kind of art. Just mental. Joe D'Amato is, like he really could be really fucking clever sometimes, It's just, I love that movie, and the soundtrack as well. It's just such a great movie. So I saw those 3 Emmanuelle movies first. So a lot of these movies in this set were new to me. A lot of them weren't, but the first one, this was the first time I've seen it. So yeah, it was fine. It didn't have as many crazy moments as some of the later Emmanuelle movies,
Yeah.
Like, it depends how interested you in 70s erotica, because like the thing is, like, you could recommend Emmanuelle in the Cannibals or the prison movie to someone who isn't just particularly into 70s erotica, because they have the other elements, but like the first Emmanuelle movie is very much a piece of 70s erotica,
Yeah.
Like,
a little more classy, I think, still trying.
It is very classy. It looks great. Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I enjoyed it. Like, but I'm interested in that kind of cinema. I'm saying, like, maybe Kruger, for example. Maybe that's why he wasn't in on it. Like as a more of a horror fan, a straight horror fan.
Yeah, we have to just show him the snuff footage and just tell him that's the whole thing.
I sent pictures of a certain film we'll talk about when we get to it.
Yeah, well, with Joe D'Amato, you never know what you're going to see on the screen. It's editing. It's really bad.
Yeah. D'Amato never really got the respect he deserves. He's always, people name the masters, Fulci, Argento, etc. But they always kind of put D'Amato right at the bottom of that list. And I don't know if it's entirely fair because, certainly he did,
He didn't give a fuck, though. I mean, that's one of the things about him was like Fulci gave a fuck. Fulci, when he got that recognition at the end of his career, that really meant something. But I mean, Joe D'Amato, from all the interviews I've ever seen from him, he just didn't give a fuck. And it just didn't mean it wasn't an issue to him, porn, horror, he didn't see his own work as being of anything special, like stuff like Death Smiles and the Murderer and
Yeah.
Buell Amigo, Death Beyond the Darkness is so. They're just something. He has something about his movies,
He does, and I mean, you're hard pressed to find a Joe D'Amato movie that was lame or boring. I mean, he always made an entertaining film.
Oh, I love the Africa one. You know, the one with the mercenaries in Africa. I can't. Tough to Kill. I think it's called Tough to Kill.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fucking something else as well, man.
Yeah, I mean, he got these movies out fast.
Yeah.
I mean, just the amount of Emmanuelle movies he did within a few years of each other is just wild. Because these movies, for anybody watching this show that are unfamiliar with them, they're not cheap. There's a lot of exotic locations. As we get into the sequels,
and they're well shot too. They're well shot, really well shot. Some of them,
very, very well shot. Yes.
Well, there's the passport.
Oh, you got the.
you got the deluxe. I was tempted, but no.
But then you have the stickers for each movie.
Yeah.
So for how many countries? So the first one we're just in Kenya.
Half the time, shit doesn't turn up to me in Colombia anyway. Like literally, 50% of the time it doesn't turn up, but I get the money refunded. But this actually arrived, so
that's awesome.
This one is still, like I said, very closer to the spirit of the French film, where I mean, I'm not saying there's not sleaze to be had in the movie. There certainly is, but it's a little more classy eroticism.
I was surprised. I was surprised by how not sleazy it was. I was expecting more sleaze from the other Black Emmanuelle movies that I'd seen.
Yeah, and you get it. It's coming.
It is.
And of course, we also have to talk Gabrielle Tinty, who plays Richard.
Gabrielle Tinty's in that. Isn't they where they met on that movie, or were they already married?
They met and then they married while they were shooting Emmanuelle in America.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then they were together until his death in 1991.
That's right. Yeah.
Very sad, because when she started to try and venture out and do other stuff, people didn't realize that he died. So a lot of uncomfortable questions about it. But lots of great stories on the extra features. They got along really well with Joe D'Amato. For the types of movies he made, most of the time casts speak very highly of him. He really kind of ran his sets well.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just remembered another movie she did with Joe D'Amato where she kept her clothes on, which is actually a fucking excellent movie. Is the Roman one he did. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Caligula. It's a rip-off of Caligula.
Caligula 2.
Yeah.
Or Caligula, the Untold Story is also what it goes.
Caligula, the Untold Story, and she plays like I can't remember what she plays, but she plays it with her clothes on anyway.
Yeah.
That's actually really one of my favorite Joe. I have too many favorite Joe D'Amato movies, but if the viewers haven't seen the Caligula 2, I highly recommend it as a piece of a slightly less explored area of Italian exploitation, the Roman Empire,
Yeah, I highly recommend those. Also from Severin, you could pick up those Blu-rays, this film, you can see why Laura Gemser became such a thing. She had a great presence about her. I know was not always again fond of being typecast, but she plays it well. Absolutely beautiful. I take Laura Gemser over Sylvia Crystal personally.
She's incredibly photogenic. I mean, there's the difference between sexy and just incredibly from a to graphical point of view, the camera loves her. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking that so many times, you know, when I was watching the movie and she's just walking across a room and it's lit well and she just looks so beautiful with the lighting and everything. It looks for erotica. I mean, you know, for something that's sort of like, it's really some good stuff there.
Yeah, and
I mean,
also,
she could have been bigger, you know.
yeah, I think she could have done had a bigger mainstream run. Like I said, I mean, she did that TV movie with Michael Landon, and if you can track that down and you want to see her in a different light, I do recommend that. We didn't talk too much about the director, Vito Albertini. He had a lot of success.
I had to Google him. I haven't heard of him before.
He is kind of known for the 3 Supermen franchise, which was pretty huge in Italy. I don't think anybody's ever done a U.S. box set of those, but
no, I haven't seen those.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if they're something you can see online, but he was largely known for those. He also did the Italian Santo knockoff Goldface, the Fantastic Superman. Was not really particularly known.
I've seen the posters. I've seen some of the posters. Yeah. Yes. When I was looking him up on IMDb, I couldn't see anything he'd done that I'd seen. Yeah, I was trying to find something that I'd seen, but I couldn't see.
He's a good director. He's still kind of ripe for discovery, I think, at least.
Well, now I've seen 2 of his movies because he did Emmanuelle 2 as well, right? Black Emmanuelle 2. So that's yeah. I mean, sorry, I'm just getting ahead. Sorry.
Oh no. Yeah. A lot of people kind of started with the D'Amato stuff, so they forget, the first 2. Yeah, let's go ahead and rate this one, and then we can talk about Black Emmanuelle 2. So if you're looking for sleaze, this has all the erotic material you could want, but it's not a particularly sleazy movie, which I know is why a lot of people bought the set, and we'll get to the horse and the cannibals and all the crazy shit that comes later, but I give this one 4 stars. It's a great, classy, erotic romance. What say you guys?
I would concur. I would give it 4 stars as well.
Awesome.
4 also, and I often talked about what movies I own a lot of versions of. I think I probably own about 6 copies of Black Emmanuelle on DVD, plus the Mondo Blu-ray and this set now. I've purchased quite a few copies of that one and Made in America.
Yeah, Emmanuelle in America.
That's what I meant.
I've owned I mean, it's pretty wild, actually. I didn't have them all on VHS, but officially, anyways. But I have owned many copies of these.
Yeah.
There you go. You got to save that one, Todd. Before we get there, 1976's Black Emmanuelle 2, also from director Vito Albertini. And in this one, we follow an international supermodel is in a mental hospital dealing with her amnesia, and her psychiatrist tries to draw out what traumatic experiences in her past contributed to putting her there. So this one, some people don't count it because it is a new actress. Her name is Shulamith Lazari. She worked under the pseudonym Sharon Leslie, and she's an Israeli actress. Not a lot is known about her. She was one and done. She never did anything else as far as I'm aware.
She's the George Lazenby of the series.
George Lazenby, yeah. Well, George Lazenby did do other stuff. He just wasn't as known for other stuff. But
I'd never seen this movie before, so my first thought was, it's not Laura Gamser. I was waiting for Laura Gamser to pop up. I thought this was a side character, but my second thought straight away was, it really caught my attention with the torture montage at the beginning where it keeps shifting torches through the ages.
Yeah.
You know, I actually thought that was a really cool gimmick. I like that movie more than the first one because for me, the second one was more of a horror erotica. It had a horror edge. I mean, it started off with the torture scene. I actually thought, because I knew Joe D'Amato started directing them, I thought, Joe D'Amato started straight away because someone's getting whipped and tortured. But it was the same director as the first one, but he really came in like much harder because the first one takes a while to get going. And this one just starts straight away with all these different tortures, you know, she's getting, and they're quite graphic too, the scene.
I do want to say Shulamith, she's not the greatest actress, and you can tell even over the dubbing. She's beautiful. You know, you'll have a good time looking at her in her nude scenes, but she didn't have that same presence as Laura Gephardt.
No, she doesn't have the same presence, no.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a difference between being beautiful and just having screen presence, you know, because some people who are incredibly ugly have great screen presence, you know, like character actors, and they just have a screen presence, and it's like if people knew what it was, right, people would be able to create movie stars, but that's why they can't.
Yeah.
You know? And Laura Gamesner really had that screen presence, you know, like Edward Finch. I never said
I do the same thing. Dan, go ahead.
Edwig Fenwick.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Dan's the only one who gets it right, or at least that's the one that sounds
right.
She is maybe top 5 most beautiful woman ever, I think, Fenwick.
Yeah. And she has that presence as well. The camera loves her, you know.
It does, yes.
You know.
You're right. I mean, in a way, after this now, we do have a healthy dose of sleaze in every Emanuelle film. This one, there's a lot of flashbacks. You don't know whether it really happened or not. A lot of themes in this particular.
There is a lot of themes, yeah.
A lot of uncomfortable stuff. Some funny stuff too.
I mean, luckily the acting it kind of negates the uncomfortableness of the subplot for me, because it's so badly written and acted. It's not like believable in any shape or form. You know? Yeah.
It does have some comedic relief in the hospital. There's a dementia patient who thinks he's a general. Very odd at this time. You know, it's not something that you get later into like today certainly you wouldn't mix a lot of this kind of comedy with this type of story, but it is at times kind of funny. I mean, there's a guy who holds an anchor on his dick, and
oh my, yes. I'm pleased you brought up the anchor on the dick scene, because that I was like, wow, yeah. One of the things I love about watching fucking grindhouse movies is you always see something you've never seen before. I was like, wow, I really don't think I've seen that before. And the fact that he was laughing so much as it was swinging backwards and forwards, because that looked painful as fuck to me. You know, he'd be rough metal anchors grinding on his penis, and he's collapsing with laughter, like really, really laughing a lot. Like it's the funniest thing that's ever happened, you know. He must have given him some good drugs before that. Shit, you know. A lot of Viagra as well, you know.
Yeah, that's pre-Viagra.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess with some 76 Italian Viagra. I don't know what the hell that's going to
be. Yeah, it's just one of those freaky scenes that you get in Joe D'Amato and Bruno Mattei movies. Like, it's just, what the fuck, you know? Yeah, actually, in the Roman one, I forgot, in the Caligula one, there's a horse scene. There's an actual woman filleting a horse cock in that movie. A horse's attached to the actual horse, which I thought was illegal to put in movies, but it was on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was actually on Amazon Prime, that movie, with the whole fuck in it. You know, if someone from Petha saw that movie, they would be so upset. You know?
The horse didn't seem to mind. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. It didn't seem to mind, not at all. No.
So yeah, I mean, I like this one a lot. It's weird though. And this might just be the fanboy in me, but I did miss Laura Gemser. It kind of feels like its own separate film.
Yeah, it didn't feel like part of the series at all. It just felt like, I mean, I would recommend it as a piece, as an oddity of 70s kind of erotic horror. I mean, personally, I really enjoyed it, you know, but it wasn't part of the Black Emmanuelle series. You know?
I think if they would have got,
I
think if they would have got Laura for it, it would have been a lot more a lot better regarded. I think.
Yeah, and I don't think the character is self-assured in this one. It feels like something different, you know.
She feels it. Well, she's very wooden. She's done like really emotional, pretty much, you know. And the whole kind of conclusion at the end, I was a bit lost. Like, so what's happening now? You slept with your didn't sleep with your you know, like right at the end, there's like this psycho babble. Oh, she's all cured now because they figured it out, and I kind of I zoned that bit out, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they trigger memories finally, but yeah, she doesn't seem like the same character, so I kind of count this as an unofficial, which there's a lot of unofficial.
I would recommend it to fans of cult cinema. You know, it had enough elements for me to enjoy. I mean, I actually really enjoyed it. You know, but I don't think it was a good movie. It was just, but I enjoyed all of very bad movies. You know.
Yeah,
but it was funny, like the anchor on the dick scene, and there were quite a lot of other scenes like that were very funny. You know? More than erotic. Yeah,
it very much entertained me. And,
well, I liked that it opened strong. It had that strong opening with the torture montage, you know, which they obviously put some work into as well with the costumes and the effects, you know, which I was surprised by, and that opening kind of just. You know, I thought I was pleasantly surprised by it, you know.
But that's the one thing about this, even if like I know people don't like to count it, it is that kind of transitional film to where we get with our next three. It kind of like gets us ready for the motto films.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the bridge between the two, from the pure erotic to what we get.
Yeah,
and I mean, it depends what you're used to too. Because, like, for example, if you've seen Thriller, A Cruel Picture, you know. You've seen porn and movies mixed together, you know.
Yeah.
Before in the 70s, you know.
Yeah, and I also wanted to point out of note in this one, Dagmar Lassender, who of course was in a ton of classic horror movies. She was Hatchet for the Honeymoon for Baba. She did House by the Cemetery, of course, for Fulci. Werewolf Woman, which is a personal favorite of mine. Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion. She worked with a lot of the top genre directors in Italy, and it was fun watching her in this one as well. So we can go ahead and
I was surprised to see her in that, actually. I thought she was a little bit above Black Emmanuelle level, you know, because I knew her from Barbara, so I was quite and Fulci, so I was surprised to see her in it, you know.
Yeah, it was an interesting time in general for movies. I mean, you could do mainstream stuff and then, you know, sneak off and do the erotic amnesia movie. You could get away with that back then.
Very different before the internet, you know.
Yeah, I also recommend Blood Spattered Bride. She did that for Luciano.
Oh, I love Blood Splattered Bride. Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah. It's one of the greatest introductions of a character. I think in any movie, you know, they clean the sand off. That introduction of that character, clean the sand off the mask, is fucking brilliant.
It is. So let's go ahead and rate this movie. I give it a 3. I still like it a lot as its own standalone thing.
Yeah, I would agree.
I swear we're gonna get a different rating eventually, but I'm a 3 on this one too.
Yeah.
There you go. And I should say, extras wise, these are absolutely stacked. There is an interview with Dagmar Lasseter where she kind of goes over her career. There is an interview.
And I have Donald O'Brien. This is a Donald O'Brien interview. I haven't watched that yet, but I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's an interview that with film historian David Polici talking about the director, which was pretty good. They talk about his Mondo movie, Naked and Cruel, that he did. Really, considering he's lesser known, I thought a really informative piece. And these extras are just totally stacked on this set, so I'm sure we'll miss some, but I can say you're definitely not getting cheated when it comes to the extra features. There is another one called Exoticizing Blackness and Erotic Sovereignty, which is an interview with adult film historian Muriel Miller Young, which that one, if you like the historical side of it, is very fascinating. I think I'm going to actually order her book that she did, A Taste for Brown Sugar, Black Women in Pornography. So that'll be on the way. And she runs down kind of some of the early films that featured Black actresses in, erotic films. Africanus Sexualis from 1970, and director Matt Cimber, and also kind of talks the Emmanuelle films owe a lot to the Mondo film, because that whole theme of sexual anthropology, and she gives a good historical background on this. There's also a good 11-minute audio interview with Laura Gemser, which is about all you get from her, unfortunately. But she did talk to somebody over the phone, and there's at least a little bit of background.
Is that a recent audio interview then?
No, I think that goes back to a previous DVD.
It was from they did it for the Blue Underground release.
Right, yeah, I thought it wasn't a recent one. It's sad, I always wonder what the people think, like who were involved in all these projects back in the 70s. That, they would have never imagined they would now be regarded like this and be held up to such scrutiny, like all the DVD extras and the interviews and stuff. They would have never dreamt. It must be nice for the people. I would have thought for Laura Gemsner, to see like her work, is actually being regarded as art, not just as porn.
Yeah,
I hope it's nice for her anyway,
Yeah, I hope she is proud of it. I know it's not necessarily what she wanted to be typecast in, but I think she has a great legacy. She made several of these that, in all honesty, I think in some ways the Black Emmanuelle series, for a lot of people, I think holds up better than the Sylvia Crystal film.
Oh yeah.
Oh, much more. In my opinion, it has because it has movies in the non erotica or across genre. So
I will say, that is one thing the original Emmanuelle series has that this one doesn't. Emmanuelle 4 in the Sylvia Crystal films is in 3D. Can only imagine if we got Emmanuelle in America in 3D. That might be the greatest movie ever made.
You want that horse coming at you in 3D?
Well, maybe not that part, but
I was gonna say,
bring it on 3D.
Yeah,
make that happen.
3D horse. All right.
So, guys, we're gonna be doing the whole set. Obviously, these will be dropping over time. But keep tuning in because it gets really interesting from here. And yeah, we'll see you back on here for the next episode, guys, with Manuel in Bangkok and Emmanuel in America.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Hey, good night.